Hello, everybody. Welcome back to 2152 Project. I am Jason from Georgia.
And Mike from Utah.
Mike, we are here today to record, or we are recording episode number 2. And you have so graphically represented our topic, which is where?
Let's see. I got episode number 2, talent retention. We're talking 2,152 miles apart about it.
Yes, and we're very excited to bring this to us again, to bring this topic, especially after the support and the shares and likes and comments we had on episode 1. I've gotten quite a few messages about people being excited about this topic. So let's just go ahead and jump in. I don't want to make people wait too long for the content. Work-based learning as a talent retention strategy. What does that mean to you, Mike?
Well, there's a lot that goes into that. But at the end of the day, I think it's really, you have to teach the buy-in side of what talent retention is all about. Because last week we talked about how do we identify the talent, how do we connect it, but then how do we retain it? And so today it's going to be more focused on that. It's after that first connection, how do we keep them on? And then how can we start to really fill those pipelines long-term? What do you think?
Yeah. Pipelines is one of mine and your favorite topics. And I think this is a perfect sequel to what we talked about last time in work-based learning as a competitive advantage. If you don't have a strategy to keep these kids long-term, you're forfeiting a lot of that competitive advantage. Mm-hmm. You're just kind of, you're investing in that. And that's one of the things that when you talk with a business that has a vision for this, they've identified the problem. They've gone through and said, look, we have a labor shortage. We need access to new talent. If that company doesn't have vision to retain that talent, then it's just a short-term solution. But typically the companies who have enough vision to look down the road and see a labor shortage in their industry coming also has enough vision to say, all right, we're going to get access to this talent by using a work-based learning program like Jason or Mike's or anybody else's. But they also have a vision to learn how to retain that talent, to have a strategy to retain that talent. So I'm super, super excited about just at least introducing the topic to industry and saying, look, not only can we give you access to talent, and I'd say Mike, I want to take a step back. This is not about my program and this is not the Jason Van Ness show or the Mike Hassler show. This is about us wanting to elevate and float all the other work-based learning programs across the country. Am I right in saying that? I want to confuse our audience. This is not us ringing the bell saying, hey, look at our programs. This is about us saying, this is what we're doing because people have asked, and trying to give other programs across the country the ideas and the strategies on how to do this, and to even convince some of our other work-based learning program, their industries in their areas, hopefully who are seeing this, and give them ideas. Because there's no reason for us to compete. This is all about giving kids access, building vision in industry. And that's kind of what we're about. So I want to clarify and say that up front, that again, like we did last time, this is not about us. This is just us talking so everybody else can kind of see and glean what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think at the end of the day, when there's buy-in on both sides of this, when there's buy-in on both sides, that's when you start to find success. And so, But I also believe that to have success with industry, for industry to be able to find the talent, to retain the talent, and for other work-based learning programs to be able to get out there and work with the right partners, there's 2 key ingredients that I would add that we need to really look at. And one of them is you have to figure out logically, where the company's at, right? What are their needs? And then when you've matched those needs, how do you sustain that success with a company? And usually, if it dries out pretty quick, it's because there's not this emotional piece, that emotional buy-in that kind of marries those 2 together. A quick example of that is we've all been told, let's not lie to ourselves, that we got to eat healthy. We got to eat our fruits and vegetables and things like that. We all recognize it. But why do we skip exercise? Why do we skip those things that make us feel better, right? It's because there's just not that emotional piece sometimes. It's like, well, logically, yeah, I'm not going to argue it, but emotionally, I'd rather just sleep in or just go get something else done.
Yeah, which could be a lack of discipline. And I think that correlates to what happens within an industry is, or maybe not like discipline, a lack of follow through is a better idea. A better word to say is you have the vision to do these things, but you don't lay the protocols in place to follow through, which means you get access to talent, but you never get all the way down to the full competitive advantage because you don't have a strategy to retain the talent you get access to. I love that's a great point, Mike. Great point, Mike.
You know, years back, I was taking some college classes. I had 3 kids at the time. I've got 4 now, but 3 at the time. And my wife's like, "Hey, why don't I just drop you off over at the university and then we'll just come pick you up after class?" And I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." So she drops me off, and a few minutes later, I get a call, and she says, "Mike, we've just been hit. We just got into an accident. We just got T-boned." And immediately I just went into panic mode. And I said to my professor, I said, "Hey, my wife just got in an accident." What? And he goes, "Get out of here, go." And so I just start running as fast as I can to where the accident is. Yeah. And it was only just, a mile or 2 miles away. I mean, it wasn't too far away. But I just remember there's a point where I just got gassed, where all of a sudden I was just like, leaning over. I was like, I could see down where the accident was. I could see my wife. I could see my kids. I could see the wreck. But there's nothing I could do about it because I was too out of shape.
You physically hit the wall. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in that moment, all of a sudden I realized like that's embarrassing and I need to be able to take care of my family or at least be there to support them when they need it. Yeah. And so I remember at the time just going out every day, exercising, eating better, and just getting to the point where I could handle those things. I could run as far as I wanted to, so I could be there. But what really made that logical piece sold to me was when I had that emotional buy-in. Mm-hmm. And in work-based learning, I think there's a lot of that. Now you talk about I can't even say it full. It's too early. Philanthropy. Yes. Yeah. You'd say that's not how this works.
I don't want business philanthropy. I want business partners.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, and for people who've never heard me say this, I'll say it now on the episode. I despise business philanthropy, meaning don't hire one of my kids because, the little high school kids need a chance. Because what happens when your motivation is just philanthropic or altruistic, and you're hiring kids just because you want to give them a chance or whatever, what happens when things get tough? What happens when maybe your bottom line starts to be affected? Maybe there's a teachable moment or two you got to go through with this kid. Yeah. If you're only relying on business philanthropy and the altruistic motivation, they're not going to partner with you anymore. I want someone who sees the value in hiring my kid, because if they do, they're going to push through those obstacles. The story you just sold. If someone really has a vision for having access to talent, gaining a competitive advantage, and having a talent retention strategy, if that's kind of what you just talked about in your story, where your family's in a wreck and you're running down, like where you want to go, but there were physical barriers there that you hit and you couldn't get past those. For you, it was okay. Now I got to train, get in shape, so that's not going to be an obstacle. Sometimes for these employers, if the vision, akin to you seeing and knowing your family's in a wreck, if the vision is, I just want to do this for the good of the kids, that sometimes will work, but ultimately it's not going to be a good partner, because when things get tough, when they hit those obstacles, they're not going to push through. They're going to say, well, my bottom line or my time or my calendar flexibility is more important than this. But when a partner has a true vested interest in knowing that these kids have talent, these kids can do the work, and they see the competitive advantage, they see the increased productivity, that's going to cause them to push through. So that's why I always say, and people are like, well, philanthropy is good. No, philanthropy is good, but philanthropy is not going to float the boat when there becomes conflicts,
I agree.
And those are partners who quickly flake off. So to coordinators, don't recruit based on philanthropy, and for partners, push past that philanthropic motivation, that altruistic motivation, and really invest in these kids because it's good for your company, not because it's good for that kid. Let me and Mike worry about what's good for the kid. You worry about what's good for your company. And that's how you're going to get productive partnerships.
Yeah. And I agree with all that. And also I believe that, if you do start with the one, then you need to add the other. And so even logically, like if you have a need, and we feel the need, but then all of a sudden you don't have a need anymore, then what, right? Our program still stops because we don't have somewhere to place these students. And so eventually you do have to kind of put those two together. But you were talking before, we were talking in the past about one of your former students and getting recruited. And is that something you want to share here, or is that just kind of for us?
Yeah, I love that. And so a story that really has that talent pipeline feel to it. Again, that's what you and I like, the talent pipelines. It was my first year here. And one of the first meetings I took was with our Economic Development Authority. The second meeting I took was with a company called Studio 8 Designs. They're a local architecture firm here. And so here's the problem. So let me set this up for you. The problem that they were facing was that we are kind of a hub city in Valdosta. So we're deep South Georgia, like 20 miles from the Florida line, but we don't have any post-secondary offerings in architecture or drafting. So that makes sense. So we have one of the best drafting programs in the state, even in the country. We send our kids through Skills USA to go and compete frequently at the national level. But what happens is we have all this talent. We've developed this talent. We've poured into these kids and they're talented in this area, but they have to leave our community to go somewhere else to a bigger place that offers a post-secondary degree or training in architecture and drafting. So Studio 8 was having a hard time getting kids to come back or getting talent to come back to our community, because what happens when a student leaves and goes to Atlanta or goes to Georgia Southern or goes to Kennesaw, which is North Atlanta, goes to any of these other big schools that have to have that degree track, is that talent typically stays there. Okay. And so that's the problem they were encountering. And so we had this conversation, and I'd love to take credit for this because I had the vision for talent retention, for having competitive advantage. And I went in, man, I was so prepared to how I was ready to pitch. I love to talk about my program, and they kind of stole my thunder, because before I could even give them the pitch, Studio 8 had a vision to say, we need access to talent and we need a way to retain that talent. And I was like, well, gosh, that was my whole pitch. I guess I don't have to go into it because you already have the vision for it. So what happened basically is we put a student with them. His name was Nathan Faircloth. And he's done a lot of promo for my program. He's even been in a National Skills USA video for promoting work-based learning. But he interned with them for 2.5 years. And he was early admittance into tech, one of the brightest drafting students in the state. So he's now at Georgia Tech. And he's been working with Studio 8 while he's in college. And I don't know all the particulars because I don't get involved with that, but I do know that he has a standing offer to come back to Studio 8. And so not only is he working there with them throughout his career at Georgia Tech, when he needs an internship or externship or a project, he has that access to them, but they're still using him. He's still working for them in his dorm room at Tech. But here's the cool part about this. And this is what I love, especially if you're listening and you're a coordinator from a small rural community. I'm not really rural. If it weren't for Moody Air Force Base, I probably would be a rural community, or I would be. But if you're a small rural community looking to compete with those metro areas, this is what I love, Mike. So tell me if this makes sense. For the first time ever in the equation of, we have the talented students in the drafting and architecture programs, and we send those students off to Atlanta. When we do that, we are hoping, just hoping, to be able to recruit that student back to Lowndes County, to Valdosta.
Right.
But we have to do it. And we're having to recruit that student away from those firms that have developed around those post-secondary institutions. All those architecture and drafting firms that have emerged around Tech, and all those architecture and drafting firms that have emerged around, or that have emerged around Kennesaw and Georgia Southern and all these bigger universities that have those programs. Now that student, Nathan, has come through my program, we actually sent him off. Studio 8 sent him to Atlanta as an employee of Studio 8. And for the first time ever, Mike, those Atlanta firms are going to have to recruit him away from us. So we flipped the script. That's cool. That makes me smile. I saw you just kind of smile, because that's a win. So not just for me in my program, and not just for Studio 8, but now for that student, Nathan has an opportunity to come back to where he's from. He's already got a standing job offer, and our community wins, because this is a student before these partnerships with work-based learning in the industry in my area, Nathan is a student we would never have had a shot at. And Studio 8 even says that. Studio 8 says we would have never had a shot at Nathan if it weren't for the partnership that we had with work-based learning. So maybe a little bit longer, a little bit more detailed than you wanted, but that's the story that hopefully can inspire industry who's listening. Man, talent retention, Studio 8, one of my best employers, had the vision and they made it happen. And we may not get him to come back. The chances are good, but for the first time ever, those Atlanta firms are going to have to recruit him away from us. The default is not, he's just going to stay there. His plans are coming back. And that's a talent retention strategy. So kudos to Studio 8. And I'd love to take credit for it. I can't. They had the vision before I even got out of my mouth.
Oh, I agree. And I love talent pipelines. I love how it goes. But I feel like, the one thing we do need to focus on, and it's cool that this one went all the way through, because
Yeah.
a lot of people will say, well, here's the students, why don't you just come talk to them? But what they don't realize is there's so many things that kind of get in the way of employers and education coming together. And so I guess I'll ask you the question, but do you, if you were a gas line pump company and you were to put a gas line in the ground and you know that it's only 90% sealed, would you still bury it and call it good?
No, no.
Why?
No.
I mean, besides the obvious. I mean, obviously it will blow up, but why wouldn't you do it outside of just the danger?
It's going to be a terrible. You're gonna lose your asset if the asset weren't going to blow up and weren't going to have all these, environmental or ecological issues. The bottom line is you're still losing 10% of your product.
You're losing product and your reputation.
Yes. Yes.
Well, why is it that all across the nation we build these talent pipelines with these leaks that are maybe 80-90% sealed, and then we just walk away and we're just like, that's good. Why did we do it with talent pipelines? Why is that acceptable?
I almost just threw a chair in my office, man. You get me pumped up. So like I say this all the time, and I don't want to. I feel like I've talked a lot so far, but we say this all the time. What other business would be successful if you invested in the asset for 12 years, K through 12, teacher salaries, equipment, meals, all these tax-based things that we put into these students, K through 12. Our school systems are the ones who are investing in this asset, this talent. And then right when they become productive parts of our community, not saying that students aren't, but when they become taxable parts of our community, we just let them walk away and go somewhere else's community. What other business would succeed doing that? Let me invest all this money into an asset to train it, to develop it, to make sure it's going to be productive and successful when it graduates. And oh, by the way, when it graduates, we're just going to let it walk off to someone else's community. That's the worst ROI metric I've ever heard of. Yet schools do it all the time. And companies around those schools should be furious.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
We have to retain that talent. I'm not saying trap the kid, but I'm saying we have to give that kid options to stay local and show that kid, hey, for me in Lowndes County, you can make a good living and you can work at a company where you're going to have a lot of opportunities for promotion, and you can do it at a lower cost of living than going to the metro Atlanta area.
Yeah.
And we've got to give them options that you can do it in a smaller community. You can do it and give at least as educators, we have to give our industry a chance at retaining this talent. So a lot of it comes on us as workforce development people in the school system.
Yeah.
To give our industry the opportunity. But then the back part of it comes on the industry. You've got to be willing to hire that talent or stop complaining that you don't have access to people who can do your job and can work for you.
Yeah.
You do. You're just letting them walk. You're letting them walk and go somewhere else. So we have to do our part. But then once we do our part, industry got to do their part. I'm going to shut up, Mike. I'm about to throw something. I'm about to, get me fired up.
I can't tell you how many, pipelines I've seen that are just 80-90% sealed, but there's that 10% that end up causing all that disruption. Yeah. And it looks differently depending on where you are. But a quick example is on Friday, I had Jake Hinckley from Sunrock.
I love that guy. I've never met him, but I love that guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. And he reaches out to me on Friday and he says, hey, Mike, I have this idea to start filling these in-state CDL driving, positions that we have. And he talks about, his vision, and I love his vision. And he says, what do you think, Mike? Would you do that? And I says, absolutely, I'd do that. And he says, what do you think? Is there anything that's going to get in the way? I said, there is. And usually in the past, when we've built these pipelines, what happens, we fill those initial needs. And then the people who are further away from those positions in the companies, whether they get promoted or whatever it may be, their urgency kind of starts to fade a little bit. And when the urgency fades, and then we have to, put students out into the field, and they don't have an urgency, then guess what we do? We go somewhere else, and we place those students somewhere else. And so Jake was awesome. And what I like about Jake is he listens without, how would I describe it? He listens, and this is, I think, important to fixing these and sealing pipelines, but he listens without a conclusion already in mind, so he'll ask a question, and of course he has an opinion, but he doesn't have a conclusion.
He's listening to listen, not listening to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something a lot of people deal with is I'm listening because I want to see where I can, but that's a good point.
I was very impressed with him because I've talked to other companies where they'll, as they're listening, they always say, yeah, but we've tried. Yeah, but, and it's tough because it's like, well, I mean, do we want to fix the leak or not? And so I think a big portion of what we have to do is we just have to ask the right questions and listen without a conclusion already in mind. But man, let's talk about sealing those pipelines. And then, because what good is it if we just walk away and just go somewhere else and then this thing just sits empty? So anyways, I could tell that's a hot button in your area too, as well.
Yeah. We have to get past the pointing fingers. I think something that a lot of people in our roles might get frustrated because they don't see the buy-in from industry to try to retain that talent, but that lack of buy-in comes from a history of us not making that talent available to industry. So, and it's like chicken or the egg, like which and I'm saying it doesn't have to be either one of those. If we can get on the same page and say, all right, starting now, we as schools are going to start pouring into talent, which we've always done. We've always poured into talent, but we're going to start making that talent available. We're going to start seeking out industry partnerships. And starting now, industry is going to start looking to this level, at least for entry-level interns and apprenticeships and building that up. And you may not have the great success at talent retention immediately, but you're having access to that talent. And as long as you've got a retention strategy, you're going to begin to retain that. So as I was preparing in my head for this episode, I thought of one of my better employers, Ace Electric. They have been able to generate 7 full-time employees since basically 2020. And that's in a commercial electrical construction field that has a substantial labor shortage in their industry. Langdale Forest, which is a lumber company. I've given them 6 employees or 6 kids. And all 6 now work for them full time. They've got 2 more students who are working there with them right now, and they're still high school. So I'm talking about once they've graduated, they've been able to convert those students to full-time employees. That's talent retention. But it takes both parties, the school and the employer, getting together. Has it been easy? No, we've had to work through OSHA regulations and what the Fair Labor Standard Act has these hazardous occupations, 17 of them. And it's taken some sitting down with their HR department and working through the issue, saying the kids can do this, they can't do this. Once they're here, they can start doing this. And there's a wage progression. There's, responsibility progression. It takes work, but can you think, Mike, can you think of an employer in your area that would turn down 6 or 7 full-time converted employees through partnering with you? I don't know of any who could say, no, we're good. We don't need that.
Yes. I absolutely do. There's a big company in our area that's in a certain, anyways, but and here's the issue is they're currently paying $1,500 if you will send them a certain position. I don't want to give it away. And then, I feel like I'm bad mouthing because I'm not. It's just one of those things that what's happening there is they're over here paying $1,500 for a referral for someone to come work in this position. And yet I've sent messages to the CEO and said, hey, we got you. Here's what we can do.
Yeah. Save your money.
Look at this. Your competitors right now, it's 4 to 1. For every 4 students to get hired by their competitors, they're hiring 1. And I showed them through LinkedIn. I said, here's their portfolios. Here's where they're working. Here's what's going on. And it was crickets back. And so my boss, Mr. David Gardner, who, when he was a graphics teacher, was given the nickname G-Dog. And now he's at the point in his career where we call him the Dog Father. But the Dog Father has told me, listen, Mike, we bring along the ones that want to come. And that's where you start. And so there are employers that, yeah, will pass, but there's others that absolutely, like you're saying, if they're thinking correctly, they're not going to pass on that type of talent. And so we bring along the ones that want to come, and that's how we've had our success, and we're not complaining.
Yeah. And so, I mean, those are great stories. And so you've seen success stories from Studio 8. You've seen success stories from Ace Electric and Langdale Forest, which are some of my partners. You talked about, you know, what Jake Hinckley is wanting to do. But then we also have some people who are, again, who are forfeiting that. Maybe they don't have the infrastructure that they want. Maybe they're trying to get things in place before they make that jump. But I can tell you that all three of the companies that I just mentioned, every one of them would and are ringing the bell for the competitive advantage through talent retention of working with these kids, getting access to this talent. And here's the interesting thing. I made a video for the Department of Education in Georgia for all workforce learning coordinators, showing them how we were recruiting and et cetera, et cetera. I maybe post a link in the comments here on YouTube for us. But some people just don't have the vision for it. But the people who are the most, who are accepting of this and wanting to do this, and you'll hear in that video, they're not trying to hog all of the talent. And you'll hear, because it's Ace Electric and a company called JCI. And they're basically saying in that video, this is not about us just putting a net around all the talent and keeping them for ourselves. This is about, similar to how you and I want to float the work-based learning industry across the country, this is them wanting to bring in kids into their industry so that everybody can benefit. Because you know what happens to them, and I love this. If you watch that video, you'll hear what they say. They said, if we don't do this for everybody and it's just about us, well, guess what happens to the talent that we recruit? They're picked off for 30 cents an hour raise. And then we've got to pick them off again for another 20 cents an hour. And then, so they said, if we're not floating the talent pool for our industry as a whole, it's not going to benefit us, because we're still going to lose that kid to chasing the money.
Yeah.
But if we can float the talent pool as a whole for everybody, not just our industry, but for all of even our competitors. Now, Mike, think about that. When is the last time you heard someone in a for-profit space talk about helping their competitors? That's how critical the labor shortage is. Because everything is, we don't do
Friday that. With Jake.
Well, well, Jake's a visionary.
But I got lucky. I got lucky on that conversation.
But that's crazy. Think about it. They're saying, and Jake's in a very related field to Ace Electric. And it's that construction. Ace is electrical construction. And I know that I followed Jake on Instagram, not Instagram, on LinkedIn. So I've seen what they do in their related fields, but that's unheard of when you hear someone say, I want to do this so I can float the whole labor pool. Because if we just pull in 5 or 6 at a time, we're going to that kid's going to get picked off. Someone's going to come, and then we're going to go pick them off again, back and forth. But if we have enough talent for everybody to go around, so I'll make sure and post that video in the comments for people to go look at. It's cool to hear them talk about what investing in these kids means, more than just them, particularly what it means for all the industry, even their competitors.
Yeah. And I think, as I mentioned with that company, that kind of, they're paying $1,500, and those students, they're like, if people in this community can find us referral, it's ages 16 and up. What happens is, with their interdepartments just aren't talking to each other. That's really what's going on. And so if I'm a work-based learning professional, that's an area that I got to start working in. Right. And so if I want or needed this company to get on board, that's where I'd start. I got to get them talking to each other, because I don't think that they recognize that they're kind of their own barrier. But then the other thing is years ago. Yeah, thank you. And years ago, we had a company say that for years, education has always been the barrier for employers getting to talent. And he said, finally, the walls are being torn down and the employers are getting access to the watering hole.
Yeah.
And his reference to that was actually, if we go back to episode 1, when I asked you, do you think that 5% of all employers, or that employers know that 5% of all the students in Utah are on LinkedIn? Yeah. And so we've developed this watering hole, this small reservoir, if you will, where employers can just go fish talent. In fact, today, we talked about a plot twist and what's kind of coming down the pipeline for the 2152. But at the end of the day, it's really about don't tell me, show me, right? We got to show the talent. We got to give them access to the talent. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got a lot of thoughts on that. I mean, I know we're excited about getting a chance to show our audience, introduce them to some talent, but I also wanted to tell you something that you're talking about education being an obstacle, or being the barrier, and that's something that something as we as coordinators have to deal with, because and it takes someone. So if you're a coordinator watching, I guess this is me kind of sharing a little bit of my experience, maybe anecdotal, maybe I don't know, whatever. But we have to be really careful when I go into a classroom. Say I go into a welding classroom and tell that welding teacher, I want your best student to come into work-based learning. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? Why would I want to give you my best student? Because if I give you my best student, they're not going to stay in my program. And that's a tough sell for someone who's not prepared for it. So work-based learning coordinator, as you prepare to cultivate this talent to give industry access to, you've got to know how to sell that. And the mentality is not, no, I'm not taking your best talent. It's, yes, I am taking your best student, your most talented student. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that student and I'm going to put them with industry, and they're going to be successful. They're going to crush it because you do a good job teaching them. I'm doing a good job giving them to industry. And then guess what that student's going to do? That student's going to go back and tell all of their friends. Yeah. And now you're going to lose your best student, but you're going to get enrollment 3-4 times over, because that student's going to go tell all his buddies, look, I was in the welding program and I joined work-based learning and I got a internship or apprenticeship at this fabrication shop. I'm doing what I want to do and I'm making good money. Now, guess what all his buddies are going to do? They're going to go join that welding program. You know? And so it takes a little bit of vision. So, but I agree, because sometimes education can be the obstacle. We're going through that and we're talking about, what just happened, Mike?
I don't know.
You see that?
My screen's going different.
Mike, what just happened?
Well, it looks to me like we're getting 2 people that just logged in.
Yep.
What's going on?
So talking about talent retention and access to talent, who do we have here? We have here?
Hi, what are you guys doing on here?
We are recording our episode.
Well, we record the 4th Wednesday of every month. What about you?
We record the 2nd Wednesday of each month. This is supposed to be our time to shine. What are you guys doing? You need kicked off. Do I need to kick you guys off?
Since we're here, no. let's just get rolling. Who is this kid over here? Who's underneath you, Jason?
Up?
Drew, why don't you introduce yourself real quick? Let me do that. Everybody, this is Drew. He is one of our apprentices in my program. And so real quick, Drew, you were working at a company called JCI, right? And what was your official title there?
Yes, sir. I was working with JCI, Jones Contractors Incorporated. And I was actually a junior contractor. So they were teaching me all about the contracting ways and how they operate on the construction site and everything they do.
Yeah, awesome. And so when I was doing one of your evaluations, they told me that you were not quite, I guess maybe in charge, but that you pretty much did the whole punch list for the 3rd floor. Is that correct?
Pretty much, yes, sir.
And how old are you?
I'm 17, just turned 17. So
at the time you were 16 years old and you're doing the punch list on the 3rd floor of a $50 million project, right?
Yes, sir.
50 plus.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Mike, you want to introduce us to your talent?
I just got to see something. Brendan, can you just go at this real fast and I want to see. Yep, that's who it is. That the shadow that we see is the host of the 2nd Wednesday of each month, 2152 podcast. Brinley, Ray, Horton. Tell us who you are, what y'all about. I'm excited to see you. Let's talk.
All right. So I found the internship program through Happy Accident. I was originally with a psychologist and it was super great, but I kind of came upon work-based learning. And now I'm taking over the 2nd Wednesday of the 2152 project, where I'm excited to be sharing, collaborating with Drew, where we talk about student success, talent acquisition, everything to do with industry, education, and students. It's going to be something super exciting. And I'm ready to get it rolling. That's for sure.
That's and Brindley's going into she's going into the human service fields, right? Mm-hmm. Which includes counseling and workforce development. That's not something that a lot of people recognize, but Brindley is a workforce development intern for the WASH K-12 internship program out in a lovely town called St. George, Utah.
Yeah, wow. St. George, Utah.
Drink it in.
Brindley, how old are you?
I just turned 17 as well.
So we have Mike. Again, this is not ringing the bell for our programs. This is just wanting to show people we're talking about access to talent. We're talking about talent retention. We're talking about competitive advantage. To bring these two young people in, they are no doubt special. They're talented. They're gifted. I think what sets them apart is they may have a little bit different drive than most of the other kids we have. But the purpose of having them do their episode and the happy accident of them popping in here today is we can illustrate, we can, catalog. This is the type of talent that's available for industry in our school systems across the country, whether it's Brindley, who is, good gracious, going into workforce development. How many high school kids do you know who have a passion for workforce development? And the cool part about that wasn't her intention. She actually came to your program and was with a psychiatrist. And through seeing what you do, Mike, she said, "What? I want to be a mini Mike, and I want to do workforce development, and I want to do talent acquisition. I want to do partnerships." And so through internships and work-based learning, she actually was able to change her field, right? And then the story of Drew, who is an engineering background, and through our STEM programs and our CTAE programs in Georgia, wanted to do construction, was placed as a junior contractor as a 17-year-old student, and his placement affirmed what he wants to do. So 2 students working on a project to help us. Brindley, her exposure helped her change her position. Drew's exposure helped him affirm his position. I mean, what an amazing story for us to be able to just to highlight them. So, guys, we'll shut up. Brindley, you, Drew, tell us what you're going to be doing next Wednesday, and walk us through what we can what we look forward to, what we can expect from y'all.
Well, first, I just want to add on what you're saying. I think that's the beautiful thing about internship programs, especially with work-based learning. It's just that I am a very indecisive person. There's a lot of people out there who are probably similar to I am. So it gives students the opportunity in order to find something else aside from what they've been growing up with, in order to think that they're going to do that for their career. So I just want to add that. But for next week, I actually want to talk about the students. This is a great way to leeway into passing the baton over to us. The 2152 project is especially important to me because it is an opportunity for Drew and I to be here as voices for the rest of the students to say, like, hey, we have a lot of talent. We have a lot of opportunity and the will and drive to do great things and to make these internship programs across the country thrive. So that's what we're going to be started out with. The 2152 project next week for the second Wednesday of each month is going to be Get Out of Our Way. That's what I called it. That's what I'm calling it.
I love it.
So yeah,
I love it.
I'm excited. I am very excited. Drew, do you want to add anything?
Yeah. I think this 2152 project will be great for especially like incoming students who are starting to be able to drive and can go off and, for example, like kind of like you, like they don't know what they want to do yet, but they want to get out there and they want to learn more. So I think that this project and work-based learning, not only in like Valdosta, but everywhere, like around the country. So I really think this project will, if the students will listen and they'll learn from us, learn from our mistakes, and help them achieve what they want. So
yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you both on board. I know Mike is. I'm excited for you to speak, not just to students, but also to speak to industry. I mean, how could industry watching this episode not be impressed with what these just turned 17-year-olds are doing in non-traditional fields, 17-year-olds don't work in workforce development. They're not junior contractors. But you both have been able to step up, and I know Mike and I trust you unconditionally with this project, and something that Mike and I have spent a lot of time on, and it's very important to us. And we're turning over a whole episode a month to you, and we're pumped about that, because I know if you do it half as good as you've done your placements with us in industry, it's going to be a home run. It's going to be a home run. So anything else that y'all want to say before we conclude? Mike, anything else you want to have them do?
Of course. Brindley, Drew, I'm excited for you guys, for reals. Like, I'm super excited for both of you. Brindley's got a cool thing that she's doing, and I don't want to ruin it, but I will say this, that if I was an employer and I'm looking to find talent quicker, I would tune in on the second Wednesday of next month and the second Wednesday of every month. Brindley's developing a process that Drew's going to be, definitely involved in. And the two of them are going to be showing the employers how to get access to talent quicker, faster than ever. And at the end of the day, I'm excited to see how this thing plays out. So thank you both for your participation and helping out.
That sounds good. Now we got to kick y'all out because we got to finish our episode.
I think it's the opposite. We're kicking you guys out.
That sounds good. Nice. That sounds good. We'll catch up soon. Second Wednesday of each month. That sounds good. We'll catch up soon.
All right.
Have a good day, guys.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Mike, so wow. I mean,
they make me happy, don't they? They're like, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, it is. And so I tell you what, man, I don't remember what we were talking about. I think we're talking about schools as an obstacle, but who cares?
Yeah.
You just saw what talent looks like. You just saw what those kids can do. Man, I mean, I don't know if I can say it enough. I mean, they just turned 17 and they're working in fields that are just so atypical for students of that age, which takes a couple of things. It takes an employer with vision, and it takes an employer with a strategy to retain that talent, and at least capture that talent while it's available. I mean, I don't know. There are not many times I'm speechless, Mike. I don't know how to follow that up. I don't know what to do.
So moving forward on that second Wednesday, that's going to be a solution-based opportunity for employers to realize how to recruit and fix a little bit of their inside PR stuff. And on the fourth Wednesday, that's when you guys can see us as well, both Jason and I, and we're all about just providing talent solution opportunities for industry across the nation.
Yeah. Well, what a great place to end it. Great day. Went some places we didn't expect. But that's the organic nature of the 2152 project. I know that we'll have plenty of content to cut up and put out. I will post the full episode as usual on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, just the audio version. So Mike, I'm done. I don't have anything else to offer, man, today. Anything else you want to offer before we close?
That's it. Thank you so much, man. Like always, it's been a pleasure.
Yes, sir. That's it. We'll catch up soon. And to everybody else who's watching, thanks for your support, and make sure you tell your business partners, make sure you tell your friends who own businesses that you just saw the future of workforce, and it's bright. It's bright. Yeah. You get access to that talent through your local work-based learning coordinator, whether you're in Georgia or 2,152 miles apart in Utah.
Utah.
So thank you all for tuning in. You'll have a great day. Bye, Mike. We'll catch up soon.